So, after a long time, we are now on Season 4. We're given 26 episodes once again, unlike Season 3, which gave us 13. How well will Season 4 hold up? How much can it establish? Well, it's time to get back to my routine in talking about every episode. Well, that's a big one. And so far, this episode has a lot to go over.
An equestrian history episode!
Oh, hi Ink. How did you get here?
Oh, hi Golden. Haven't collabed with you yet. See, I've been practicing controlling the rift. Voice of Reason is now my master, and I am his apprentice. We rule the rift together.
Okay. Since you're a fan of history, that makes sense.
Heck yeah, am I a fan of equestrian history? Anyone who knows anything about me knows that. Let the review begin!
Twilight, now as a princess, is set to play a role in the Summer Sun celebration in Canterlot with Celestia and Luna. Unfortunately, because of her role, she has to stay in Canterlot as her friends are heading back to Ponyville, which leaves her behind and left alone. However, Celestia is willing to comfort Twilight as she attempts to pay a visit in her room, while Twilight goes over a checklist of her preparations. Here we see Celestia's viewpoint on the Summer Sun celebration, as her vision on it is deep and somber towards Luna.
I must admit that it is wonderful to actually be looking forward to the Summer Sun celebration.
What do you mean?
For my subjects, it has always been a celebration of my defeat of Nightmare Moon. But for me, it was just a terrible reminder that I'd had to banish my own sister.
I guess I'd never really thought about it that way.
With the current events, she hopes to change her viewpoints for the better.
Good lord, I loved this part. Here we really get to see Celestia's regret of sending her sister away. She really does care for her sister, and I found that so heartwarming. Now can you fans please stop calling Celestia a tyrant and a troll? Anyway, I love how Celestia and Twilight's relationship is portrayed here. I have always loved the idea of how Celestia is like a mother to Twilight, and when the two shared that little cuddle, my heart exploded. This, my friends, is the definition of adorable. I really hope we get to see more of this mother-daughter sort of relationship later in the season.
Then, surprise surprise, Celestia and Luna get captured, which leaves the conditions of Equestria in an unusual state. Both the sun and the moon are mixed together, splitting both day and night in half. It's later found out that the Everfree Forest is out of control and expanded into Ponyville, and this is overall threatening Equestria. Plants of black vines and spiky clouds are popping out, causing environmental havocs. Twilight, now in charge, heads down to Ponyville to meet up with her friends and investigate behind this turmoil. They luckily run into Sakura, who has moved away from the forest due to the obvious conditions, and conveniently, Sakura has a potion that explains the details behind the historical events.
You mean the Deus Ex Potiona?
It only works behind Alicorn magic, which obviously leaves Twilight to test it out. In effect, she's taken through a flashback that eventually leads her to where the elements of harmony originate from, the Tree of Harmony. Based on what we've seen, Twilight figures out that the Tree of Harmony is in possible jeopardy and is in need of help, and ever so conveniently is it located in the Everfree Forest, and thus they venture off. I'll just say right here and now, I really admire this premiere. What I get here is a lot of what I asked for. We get screen time with Celestia and Luna for once. We're given historical events behind them, from Luna's transformation to Discord's reign, and they're all played out so well. In fact, the part that gets me the most is during Celestia's battle with Nightmare Moon. Every moment is intense, the action is exhilarating, and the overall conflict is largely tragic and somber.
This freaking part. I have no words. The animation was absolutely glorious. The emotion was beautiful, and the overall epicness was astounding. This is my favorite part of the premiere, maybe of the whole series. I have been wanting equestrian history for a long time, and now my dream has come true. As an artist, I can really appreciate all the hard work that went into this. You really have to wonder how many programs they're using besides Flash at this point. The elements of harmony were obviously CGI, but you have to wonder what other parts of the scene used other programs.
At one point during their fight, Celestia is taken down and Twilight's emotionally stunned by her defeat.
No, would Luna do this? Why now?
This part almost made me cry. Celestia's scream, Twilight's weeping, and the beautiful lighting and art direction make this a very emotional scene. I applaud you, DHX.
While it is true that Twilight is still oblivious to knowing that everything is played out as a memory, it's still a well-played scenario. Admittedly though, it's a pointless filler to the main story, but it helps me appreciate Celestia more than ever. Based on what Celestia was explaining regarding Luna and the Summer Sun celebration, this flashback thoroughly emphasizes her loss to Luna when she had to banish her. We even see her in tears in the process of doing this, giving us how tragic it was for her. There's already fan work about this in the past to be sure, but the show never revealed the emotional side of the story until now, and for once I'm glad to finally see that we have more activity with Celestia and Luna. In fact, in the season 4 opening that's altered, Luna appears next to Celestia, which can simply imply that she might get more screen time this season.
Perhaps the only flaw I have with this part was Nightmare Moon's dialogue. It was pretty darn cheesy. Same with her stupid, evil laughter. Also, wasn't Nightmare Moon's voice supposed to be deeper? The voice used here is Luna's. Besides that, this part was absolutely perfect.
The other aspect that holds strong to me is Twilight's role as a princess. Many viewers were worried about the possibilities of making Twilight a Mary Sue. Surprisingly, she's still herself and she is unsure about her place as being a princess. Going even further, with Celestia and Luna absent, Twilight's the only one the guards and authorities can look up to, and it's a pretty pressuring situation that weighs over her shoulders. But instead of panicking, she boldly takes steps and gives orders to the guards and insists on figuring out the situation.
The royal guards seem to be getting lamer every season. Their job was to protect the princesses, and they failed. You had one job, guys. One job.
Based on the term princess, it was addressed as a marketing stereotype which was often misrepresented to young girls, ignoring the true values of what a real princess is. This episode has proven that term in the acts of responsibility and not just being a princess for the sake of respect.
It's every pony's dream to someday wear a crown and have their coronation ceremony preserved in stained glass for all to see. I don't know if it's every pony's dream.
That couldn't be any more truthful in society today. In furthering this topic, during Twilight's journey to the tree, her friends try to convince her that she should depart away and leave the task to them. It's a heart-wrenching scene given how divided she feels, but considering that Twilight's the remaining princess Equestria can look up to, they don't want to risk endangering her.
Heart-wrenching? Maybe. Not for me, though. For me, this was my least favorite part. After all the girls have been through together, they're treating Twilight differently after she just got some wings. They don't even realize that she's the same pony, even after in the beginning scene she told them to treat her the same. It would have been okay if 1 or 2 of the main 6 had agreed to her leaving being for the best, but all of them? Even Rainbow Dash, the element of loyalty? Perhaps Twilight could have decided to stay with the girls, and later they would have learned that just because a friend has a change in status or appearance, it doesn't mean they're a different person, pony. Or maybe Twilight could have learned that as a leader, she must lead by example and do anything to help her kingdom. Or maybe the girls would learn to trust her friends. I don't know, this scene kind of bugged me.
Well, on some technicality, Dash was loyal by keeping Twilight away for safety reasons. It isn't always about literally sticking by their sides, but taking greater risks to keep others safe. Meanwhile, we also get someone who we haven't seen in a while, Discord. In terms of morality and humor, Discord stole the show. Despite that he's been reformed, he's still zany, cynical, and still a dickhead. As usual, the many gags he conjures up are very creative, even to the point where he appears wearing a maid dress. And I still get laughs out of it. What I value more of, though, is that by his manipulative antics, he teaches Twilight a few lessons by still being a dick. Upon Twilight's return, Discord convinces her to go back to her friends, which in short does a huge favor for her. Additionally, though spoiling the ending, Discord reveals that he was the one responsible for growing the black vines back 1,000 years ago, but in an original attempt to stop the tree before being turned to stone. Even though he's reformed, he utilizes his antics to get the main 6 to learn something. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's an authentic way for me to appreciate what Discord does. And as usual, John Delancey still has a lot of fun with his role.
Before this episode, Discord was an okay villain to me. He was fun and great, but Chrysalis was my favorite. After seeing this episode, though, Discord skyrocketed into the place of my favorite villain. He was amazing in this episode. The visual gags were great, his dialogue was great, and his personality was stupendous. I had always been wondering why people liked Discord so much, and now I really can see why. Also, this part was hilarious.
Oh, this is so much fun. How about a game of pin the tail on the pony?
Admittedly though, I'm giving this premiere a lot more credit than I should, but I can't go as far as to say that I love it either, because there's a lot of shortcomings that stick out like a sore thumb. Some questions are being answered by this premiere based on the previous events of the series, and yet more questions are raised to the point where nearly plot holes are potentially being penetrated in this one. Where did this potion come from, for example? Is it going to be explained later in the series? Since the main six had to return the elements of harmony to the tree, I want to know where the tree came from as well. I at least hope that this is explained later on, because we don't need any more MacGuffins or Deus Ex Machinas. Now granted, not all questions can be answered, but when you explore the origins of something to another that raises questions on where that's from, you're going to get an ongoing chain of events that'll be very confusing in the grand scheme of things.
To be honest, I'm sad that the elements had to go. They were an important part of the show, and it's a bit heartbreaking to realize they may never be seen again. After all, like Applejack said, they were what brought the ponies together. Without them, there would most likely be no main six.
By the end, we're given a key box which indicates that the rest of the season will possibly be more adventure-based than the previous seasons, and each of them will individually have their own personal spotlight. And again, based on what we've seen in the opening with Luna appearing next to Celestia, we might get more activity with the Alicorn sisters.
The Royal Sisters are some of my absolute favorite characters in the show. I really love all the attention they're getting, and I hope we get to see more of that throughout the season. Especially a Celestia episode. Please, dear God, let there be a Celestia episode.
Ultimately, as a falls flat on several keys after what I pointed out earlier, I thoroughly enjoyed this premiere. We're given historical insight of what we've known, and we see it through our own eyes as it touches upon what solutions need to be solved on our own terms, given that the main six had to give up the elements. On top of that, it's a visually stunning looking episode. The animation is smooth and fluent, and some scenes have some well-rendered shading effects, providing more dimension than the three previous seasons. This blows the Crystal Empire completely out of the water, and we're given a very strong start. Say what you want about how Sombra was supposed to be the sense of darkness, but it fails miserably, given that he's physically present when Sauron, who Megan drew inspiration from, was spiritually returning. It's from this point on that based on what villains I've seen recently, I don't think Megan McCarthy can write villains very well. And I'm glad to see that she didn't write one at this point. There was a conflict itself that needed to be resolved over 1,000 years ago.
I loved this episode. It was a beautiful start to a hopefully amazing season.
So what's in store for us this season? What direction will the series bring the main six to? Until we get these answers, I'm GoldenFox, and I will catch you all later.
And I am Inkrose, who is hoping desperately for a Celestia episode. See you all later. Into the rift I go!
Well, that's an odd way to leave the rift. Come to think of it, that's pretty creative. Gotta admire that stuff. Whoa, what was that flash? Holy crap, a cutie mark!